Hi Year 5. Today I'm going to do a short video on different types of sentences you can use. This is based on the Alan Pete sentences, the super sentences we use in class. So the first one we've got is a 2A sentence. So he was a tall, awkward man with an old, crumpled jacket. And here you can see each sentence has two adjectives before the first noun, followed by two adjectives before the second noun. So you can see your two adjectives here and your two adjectives here. And you've got your first noun, man, and your second noun, jacket. This type of sentence can be used to create a strong image in the reader's mind. The next type of sentence we've got is a simile, and we know a simile makes a comparison using like or as. The moon hung above us like a patient, pale white face. Although it was August, it was as cold as a late December evening. And I'm sure with similes, you can think of many that you could use in your work. Another one which we've used quite often in class is the 3ED sentences. And these sentences are good for showing the emotional state of a character. And what it is the first three words in the sentence end with ED. So we've got frightened, terrified, confused. They ran from the creature. Amused, amazed, excited. He left the circus reluctantly. Confused, troubled, worried. She didn't know what had happened. And these are very good to use in your work when you're describing your character's feelings. The next type of sentence is two pairs. So we've got exhausted and worried, cold and hungry. They did not know how much further they could go. Injured and terrified, shocked and lost, he wandered aimlessly across the battlefield. Angry and bewildered, numb and fearful, he couldn't believe his eyes. And again, when it says two pairs, you can see you've got your first set of words describing how he felt in yellow, and you've got a second set of words in red, and you've obviously got the conjunction and in between them. The next one is Dede, description and detail sentences. And the first part of the sentence is descriptive, and then the second part adds the detail. And here we're going to use a colon to separate it. The vampire is a dreadful creature. It kills by sucking all the blood from its human victims. So the first part of that sentence, we've described the vampire as dreadful. And in the second part, we've given the details of what it actually does. Again, snails are slow. They take hours to cross the shortest of distances. I was exhausted. I hadn't slept for more than 2 nights. Again, this is one that we're used to using in class. We've got verb person, and this type of sentence is very powerful when opening a story. The verb can often be used to open a sentence followed by a comma and then the name of the character. So, flying, John had always been terrified of it. Walking, he seemed never to have walking, he seemed to have been walking forever. We then have our outside, inside sentence, and this is where we've used brackets. So the first part of the sentence tells us what is happening outside of the character. He laughed heartily at the joke he had just been told. But the brackets inside tells us how the character was feeling on the inside. At the same time, it would be true to say he was quite embarrassed. So he was laughing at the joke he'd just been told, but he was actually quite embarrassed, and we know that from the work that's been put inside the brackets. She told the little girl not to be so naughty. Inside, however, she was secretly amused by what she had done. We also have our if, then sentences. And this is an extremely effective way of starting or ending your story. If the alarm had gone off, if the bus had been on time, if the road repairs had finished, then his life would not have been destroyed. If Hannibal hadn't lost, if Rome hadn't won, if Carthage hadn't fallen, then the Mediterranean would have been a lot different. And you've got your emotion word comma. So, desperate, she screamed for help. Terrified, he froze in fear. And anxious, they began to realise they were lost forever. And again, this is a really good way of highlighting the character's emotional state, and something we've used quite often in class, especially when we're doing our work on Shackleton. The next one is noun, followed by who, which, where. So cakes, which is your noun, which taste fantastic, are not so good for your teeth. And then the extra bit that you've got is actually an embedded clause. So the next one, snakes, which scare me, are not always poisonous. The garage where he had his car repaired had been closed down. And again, this is a very common one we've used in class. We've got many questions. Where is the treasure? The diamonds, the gold, the rubies? What if it rained? It poured, it became stormy, thundered. And if you notice, what a very important thing with many questions is after the first question mark, the next questions don't start with a capital letter. You must remember that if you're using many questions within your work. And we've got add, same, add. And this is a great way to emphasise an adjective in a sentence without sounding boring. He was a fast runner. Fast because he needed to be. He was a smart dresser. Smart because he had the money to buy the best. It was a silent town. Silent in a way that did not make you feel restless. We then have 3 bad question sentences. Greed, jealousy, hatred. Which of these was John Brown's worst trait? So if you look at the question, you've got 3 bad traits followed by the question. And the same with the next one. Incompetence, arrogance, stupidity. Which of these was Caesar's fatal flaw? And the last one. Thirst, heat stroke, exhaustion. Which would kill him first? You then have your double ly ending. So this is again where we end a sentence with 2 adverbs. And it's a great way to add detail to your sentence. He swam slowly and falteringly. And you can see you've got your verb, your first adverb, and then your second adverb. He rode, so you've got your verb, determinately and swiftly. And again, you've got your adjectives. Use all the W's in the sentence. So with the W's, you've got who, what, why, when, where, was, will, what if. They are used as openings to engage the reader, or at the ending to make the reader think. So again, this is great for your rhetorical questions. Why do you think he ran? What next for the endangered species of Tonga lizard? Why is our climate changing? And that would be a great way to, for the example at the end of a newspaper report, to give your reader a question to think about. And then we have your lists, and these are the most simple types of sentences, and they're great to create an image in the reader's mind. It was a dark, long, leafy lane. She had a cold, cruel crackle. It was a cold, wet, miserable morning. And then if you see here, they've actually added alliteration in as well. But they've got a comma between the adjectives, apart from the last one, which leads on to the word. here we have some compound sentences that use a semicolon rather than a conjunction, and they're a useful way for introducing an argument in fiction or non-fiction. So some people love football, they use your semicolon. Others just can't stand it, like me. Some days are full of enjoyment. Others begin and end terribly. And again, I think that's two sentences that we all could use. This is something that we did start working on, the personification of weather. Now with the personification of weather, this is taking an object, such as weather, that doesn't have any feelings, and giving it feelings like we would have. So the rain ripped down the window. Again, means a sad mood, but rain wouldn't normally weep. The wind screamed through the branches. The wind howled would be another one. The breeze murmured through the branches. The snow smothered the town. And these are useful for creating mood within your stories. And again, we looked at these when we did our work on the Highwayman. PC for our paired conjunctions. This is something that we've tried to use before in class. It was both cold and unpleasant for him to work there. It was not so much the lack of time as the fear that stopped him. Neither money nor gifts could make him visit the house. He was as silly as a clown. And then you can see at the bottom, we have some little codes. So if you're going to use both and, you've got BA. Not so and as is NA. Neither nor is NN. And AA is as. We've got the more, which we have tried to include in our work as well. I think when we looked at Journey to the River Sea. The more upset she was, the more the tears flowed. And again here, the first more helps us underline the emotion. Then put a comma at the end and continue with the action related to the emotion. So the more happy she became, the more talkative she seemed to be. So the happier she is, the more she talks. The more angry he became, the more he banged his fists on the table. The more angry he becomes, the more he hits something. And that is where you've got your more and more sentences. Next one are your short, snappy sentences. And these are great to use in your work. They've got 1 to 3 words in. They're really effective for getting that dramatic effect after long sentences and as dialogue between characters. So then it happened. Everything failed. Just like that. Oh no. And these are sentences that you have used in your work before, and I would like to say that you continue to use. Irony. So here we've got some words in inverted commas that shows the reader the statement is not true. So our luxury hotel turned out to be a farm building. Now if I was staying in a farm building, I wouldn't say that was luxurious. The trip of our dreams was in fact our worst nightmare. So the trip that they'd been planning turned out to be the worst trip they ever had. With dawn breaking, the beautiful view revealed itself to be a scrapyard and rubbish tip. Now if I booked into a luxury hotel and woke up to that view in the next morning, I definitely think I'll be putting beautiful view and luxury in inverted commas. You also have imagine, and this one was something that you did start to use. Imagine with 3 examples, but we didn't really have the time to go over it. And this combines a lot of the different punctuation we've used. So this is a superb sentence, especially for things like science fiction work and other types of fiction stories. So imagine a time when people were not afraid, when life was much simpler, when everyone helped each other. This is a story about that time. And this one, you have your PEE. And this is where you've got your point, your evidence, and you explain. And this is a great way, a great type of sentence to use with non-fiction to give your point of view. So, should we stay at school till 4:30. We will be tired to learn at school, all day at school, so that's your point. You've then got your evidence. Scientists have proven frequent breaks are better than long hours. With less time in class, the classroom, we're able to achieve more, allowing us to get better grades. So what they've done is, you can see you've got your first part, your first sentence, which is your point. Then you've backed up that point with some evidence. You've got your scientists have said, so that might be a study or a book that you looked at, and you then have your explanation. So what does that actually mean? Well, if they've found that long breaks, that breaks give children more time to read and to understand things, then the explanation is that the less time in the class, we're able to achieve more. Now, I hope you find these videos helpful and that you use them within your future writing.